You spoke about the role as an intellectual and moral compass, and you raised 4 issues. You said the university should tackle 4 particular issues. You were concerned about constitutionalism, HIV/AIDS, crime, and education. Now, when I look back on that, now, 5 years later, I wonder whether you weren't targeting too wide a range of activities. Because I'm not quite sure, you would have to tell me, but what have we done about things like crime or constitutionalism? I mean, it's true, I can read the odd piece by Professor DeForce, but beyond that, what are we doing? And yet, these were the things that you signaled out that the university had to be committed to.
Yeah. So let's take them seriatim. In fact, I have to confess that we expanded the number rather than reduced it or focused it more.
I'm not worried about the numbers, I'm worried about the delivery.
So,
big problem in this country.
So constitutionalism, just as a start, because we've already been talking a bit about
Yes, that's true.
and that is one example. But the chair, the Claude Leon chair in constitutional democracy, which Pierre DeForce occupies, was created and appointed shortly after that. And it was one example of how I think the university needs to ensure that its intellectuals, that its academics are public intellectuals and they engage. And we've tried to stimulate that across the board. And I think and we do measure the column space that we get on various issues, I think you would find that the presence of the university in the media has been much greater in the last 5 years than it had for perhaps the 15 years before.
No, I don't think that's so. Where do you get that from? I mean, I think that there was a time that people here during the apartheid era really said a huge amount.
Yeah, no, I was saying in the 15 years
before.
Okay,
so 15 years. Like my arithmetic wasn't so wonderful. Okay,
from
fair
1994.
Okay.
And I think that it wasn't just because of me. I think the country went through a sort of honeymoon period where people were more reluctant to lay into the government or into public officials, and that we're over that. So there's much more willingness. But in terms of my own role, to the extent that I could lead by example, have been writing op-ed pieces, writing letters, participating in marches, organizing or helping organize marches on campus around a range of issues. And so trying to signal to the world, and particularly to our students, that this should be an activist university, that's part of our role, is to engage, to be active citizens, and one of the marches was in support of the Social Justice Coalition, for example, and to signal that that's part of what we do. Okay. So, but there have been also other, particularly in law, but also, for example, in the law faculty, but the group D. Smythe and the group that's been looking at the traditional courts bill has been really important in looking at the role of rural women.
I take it they've been fantastic. I don't think we have to go.
To make a difference.
Fair enough. What about the others?
Violence, safety, and violence. Well, in the other initiatives, most of them, in 4 of them, we've created structures across the university which are headed either by a pro-vice-chancellor, where it was possible to find someone who was at that level of academic standing that they could be appointed to that. And the 2 that we appointed pro-vice-chancellors for were climate change and development, which was an additional initiative, and poverty and inequality, which underpins all the others. Climate change and development is Professor Mark New, and poverty and inequality is Professor Murray Leibrand. And in these initiatives, we've pulled together people from across the university who do related work. And the interventions range from stimulating new research, creating workshops and conferences, engaging with policymakers, in the case of poverty and inequality, particularly with the National Planning Commission and Trevor Manuel, and that commission is a major funder of this initiative. For example, the Carnegie 3 inquiry last year was part of that initiative, which brought together, both inside the campus and from across the country, some 300 and something papers, funded about 50% by the National Planning Commission, and has triggered a 3-year program of work ranging from nutrition, schools, rural and land issues. So some of them are slightly indirectly related to the economy and poverty and inequality. Others are directly about job creation and employment. In climate and change and development, aside from working with, for example, the COP7 Durban conference and having a lobby, also with government, we've created a master's program which brings people from all different disciplines who want to work in climate change and development, and gives them the opportunity to move into that area. Crime and violence, safety and violence, which is one of them. We appointed Guy Lamb to be the director of that initiative. Unfortunately, that initiative took longer to get going. We had advertised but didn't find someone for 2 years. But in the last year, he's been there for a year. In the last year, it's really taken off. And that initiative has about 35 academics from units across the campus. They're doing major work, for example, around substance abuse and domestic violence, substance abuse and personal injury, mainly in the health sciences faculty, but also with psychology and others. They're doing work with the Western Cape government on initiatives, district initiatives, housing for safety, it's actually called. They're doing work in Hanover Park on gangs and schools. And so what they're trying to do in that area is research and policy.
All right.